let's talk about Busta Rhymes and COVID, folks. Talk about some crazy comments. I got to break these things down for you and show you. Y'all just play what the hell he said before an audience. It's just stupid comments. Go.
Once COVID could suck a dick. We outside. All these little weird-ass government policies and mandates suck a dick. Stop trying to take our civil liberties away. Feels good to be back outside. We outside for real. It's called the God-given right of freedom, right? No human being is supposed to tell you you can't even breathe freely. Fuck your mask. I'm saying. Some of y'all might feel differently, but fuck your mask. I can't rhyme to you with a mask on. We can't eat food with a fucking mask on. We can't even see each other smile with a mask on. Damn, yo, I come from a time where before I used to even want to holler at a chick, I used to have to do shit with my face to let her know that I'm into her. All of that energy gets blocked when your mask is on. Energy is important, and we are all conductors of fucking good energy. We also gotta be clear when a motherfucker trying to give you bad energy. You can tell from only the expression on their face. I want to see your face. Fuck your mask. Hey, yo. I'm sorry I got a little political and shit. I miss my people. We gotta talk. We can party, but we gotta talk. We gotta communicate. We gotta establish new understandings. Fuck that. I ain't going through that shit again. And make sure y'all prepared too. If anything came out of this motherfucker, was a lot of learning. I done learned so much shit in this little time off. Thank you for the one thing that came good out of this fucking shutdown. I have become more empowered. And this energy right here is unfuckwittable. They can't fuck with us when we together like this. That's right.
All right. So we have had to deal with a litany of damn entertainers giving us their clueless and uninformed, uneducated, utterly ridiculous, nonsensical, asinine, ass backwards perspectives on COVID. Let me try to be as clear as possible. This shit is pissing me off. Because what we are witnessing are people who have significant platforms, who sound about as dumb as Donald Trump about injecting bleach and sunlight into your body, and it's gonna come out of your body. Busta Rhymes, you are a rapper. You are a successful rapper. You are one of the best rappers. But you don't know shit about science or medicine. Do I respect your rap game? Yes. When I saw you at the NBA All-Star game in Houston and you dapped me up and you said respect OG, same to you. But on this topic, you don't know what the hell you talking about. And so when you stand in front of audiences, stand in front of black people and say these absolutely ridiculous things, and we're having to deal with people who are dying, who are literally dying, who are in ICUs right now, and you talk about fuck mask? What the hell are you talking about? So here's what I'm going to do. I did this with Kanye, and I'm going to do this right now with you, Busta. I'm about to show you, Busta, what we call a Roland Martin Unfiltered deconstruction. So, cue it up, and when I tell you to stop it, stop it. Hit play.
In the last 15 fucking months, COVID could suck a dick. All these little weird-ass government policies and mandates suck a dick.
Stop.
They're trying to take our civil...
Stop. Come back to me. Listen. He just said all these weird-ass government policies. Buster, you have traveled overseas. You have traveled to the motherland. When you traveled to the motherland, you had to get a series of shots or you could not have gone into that country. That's called government policy. You, Buster, took a series of shots or you could not have gone to elementary school. That's government policy. Press play.
The liberties away. Feels good to be back outside. We outside for real. It's called the God-given right of freedom, right? No human being is supposed to tell you can't.
Now, it's called the God-given right of freedom. No human being can tell you this. That's a lie. Buster, when you go into a restaurant, you have to put on a shirt. Otherwise, we gonna see your gut, your chest, your arms, your biceps. You gotta put on a pair of pants. You gotta put on shoes. You just can't walk into any place and dress however the hell you want to do. You abide by that. You were on that stage last night. You didn't have any pants on? Will they let you walk on that stage with all of your God-given rights and freedom? Will they let you walk on that stage butt naked talking to the crowd? Nope. Press play.
Can't even breathe freely. Fuck your mask. I'm saying. Some of y'all might feel differently, but fuck your mask. I can't rhyme to you with a mask on. We can't eat food with a fucking mask on. We can't even see each other smile with a mask on. Damn,
Stop.
yo. I come from...
Stop. We can't eat with the mask on. The policy, Buster, is you can take your mask off to eat. I was on the airplane flying here to LA. The rules on the plane say, keep your mask on, except when you are drinking and except when you're eating. How hard is it to take your mask off, eat, put it back on? I can't see your smile with a mask on. Okay, let me further unpack that. Press play.
My time, where before I used to even want to holler at a chick, I used to have to do shit with my face to let her know that I'm into her. All of that energy gets blocked when your mask is on. Energy is important, and we are all conductors of fucking good energy.
Stop. Stop. He just said, when I see a sister and I want to holler at her, I'm showing my face. Energy is important. How we conduct energy. Buster, if your ass dead, you ain't got no energy. If you laid up in the hospital, intubated, ventilator, your ass ain't got no energy. So, which one you want? Dead, no energy, mask, energy. Which one you want? I mean, this really isn't hard. Busta, you working out, all buff. If somebody is smoking a cigarette in your face and they are blowing smoke in your face, are you going to say, wow, I like your energy? Your energy is wonderful. Your energy is great. You're going to say, hell no, put that damn cigarette out. Y'all might be asking, why am I so hot? Why am I so upset? Why am I so bothered? I am bothered because what we are seeing are individuals who have voice and platform, who are literally lying to people, who are leading them like lambs to the slaughter because they are so upset because, oh my God, I have to wear a mask. As if the whole damn world is going to end because you got to put a mask on. Now, here's what I find to be interesting. Oh my God, I can't even. Busta Rhymes, you did an interview with the Drink Champs and admitted that you almost died because of bad health habits. You the same Busta Rhymes who admitted you almost died as a result of bad health habits. This was your quote. Quote, you kind of stopped giving a fuck about a few things. That's what you said. Quote, I just started drinking and smoking crazy, eating crazy, and I got out of shape really bad. According to this story, the rapper went from about 267 pounds to 340 pounds. Busta admitted it got to a point where he started to hear it revealing, I had, oh my God. Quote, I had breathing issues. I ended up on 2 blood pressure medicines. I wasn't really driven to do anything outside of what I had to do to take care of my family. You said, Busta, that your son had to pull you aside to discuss your bad healthy habits. Quote, my son was so scared of how he was going to hurt my feelings by having this conversation with me directly that he had to tell someone else to tell me. That shit fucked me up. I just felt like I was letting my son down. I felt like I was letting a lot of people down. Busta revealed, quote, from his doctor, your polyops grew so big that it blocked 90% of your breathing passage, and if I send you home tonight and you sleep under the AC and catch a cold, and that last 10% of breathing, of your breathing passage gets blocked up, you are going to die tonight. In that moment, Busta knew it was time to change his way and make his health a priority. Busta, do you zoom? Henry, come on, zoom in. I can't for some reason my iPad, matter of fact, no, I got it. Let me just do this right here. Do y'all see my Instagram? Do y'all see my phone? If you see my phone, switch to it. This is a post of Busta Rhymes from October 22nd, 2020. This is what it reads. Don't ever give up on yourself. Life begins right now. My dedication is different. I would never put out an album and not be in the best shape of my life. Respect myself too much, and I respect y'all too much. I'm only here to inspire. Busta, that's you right there. That's your gut right there. But then you got into shape. Now, Busta, I need you to explain to me, if you put that out pre-COVID, how in the hell are you then going to complain about wearing a mask when you admitted you previously had breathing problems? See, this is what we call the desire to be truthful to your audience, not lead them astray, not run them amok. But I gotta go ahead and say this. Busta, do I need to remind you? You put out an album, and this is the album cover. Yo, this is how crazy this stuff is. Yo, this is the album cover of a Busta album. The album is called Extinction Level Event 2. The Wrath of God. Let me repeat that. It's called Extinction Level 2. The Wrath of God. This is the album cover. A man wearing a mask. So, but Busta, you put this out. You called it Extinction Level 2. Sounds to me like God was actually trying to send you a message, Busta, to remind you of what you did, because what you are doing right now, Busta, is you, by virtue of that rant, you are actually leading people to be extinct. And maybe, Busta, since you want to talk about energy, maybe you might need to realize that if you call it the wrath of God, then shouldn't godly people listen to the godly doctors and scientists who are trying to save people? That's what you might want to do. Folks, back to that Roland Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, folks, if you want to, get a couple of the products of Seek.com, black-owned company founded by Mary Spiel. They have these amazing 360-degree headphones, tremendous sound. The bass is incredible. And so they also have their virtual reality headsets. You place your phone into it. You can see the VR content at seek.com, seek.com, or you can watch 360-degree videos. All you got to do is go to seek.com, use the promo code RMVIP21, RMVIP21, so you can actually get those products. And then when you purchase one of them, or both, those portion of the proceeds comes back to us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. So we certainly thank Mary Spiel and Seek for being a partner with us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered.
We could not get through this show without talking about the Pied Piper. Today marks day 7 of the R. Kelly trial. In a testimony, Tom Arnold, Kelly's former studio manager, testified that the singer docked his pay because he booked a male tour guide for Kelly and his girlfriend when they attended Disney World. Arnold told jurors that he finally got fed up with the singer's bizarre rules and quit in 2011, stating that Kelly always requested a female tour guide when on trips. The former employee added that the troubled singer would fine staffers for minor infractions, such as eating his donuts. R. Kelly is charged with 9 counts of racketeering in violations of the Federal Mann Act. The stories that we're hearing coming out of here, both Reese, Dr. Carr, the stories we're hearing coming out of this trial have been devastating, to say the least. This is a lot bigger than the Lifetime special that we saw, that everybody saw about R. Kelly. At this point, you're having people speak about in very grave detail about sexual deviance, about physical punishments, about basically being held captive, about the rules of people who they weren't allowed to contact, that they had to let R. Kelly know and get permission before they went to the bathroom, that they couldn't go outside without a male escort. We're hearing more and more details, gruesome details in many cases, coming out of this trial. What are your thoughts thus far with what you've seen and heard, Reese?
First, I don't know if you know Faraji is still there, but I will say, I will say it's horrific, number one. And you know, one of the things that I really hate, to be honest, is the way that Aaliyah is being dragged into this. You know, yesterday was the anniversary of her passing, or no, I'm sorry, her birthday. And, you know, it's just, she's not here to defend herself. So it's just really horrific to hear her life being talked about in a way that, you know, she had completely moved on from that chapter in her life. But, you know, just because she's famous doesn't mean that her trauma or what she suffered from is any worse than anybody else. I mean, he's a predator. He is a predator, and, you know, he took advantage of people, not just sexually, but with his power. I mean, he could go to jail for labor violations, you know. I mean, he's just an all-around scumbag and piece of shit. And, you know, I don't see how anybody can watch what's happening here and listen to the stories that are just so, you know, plentiful, and still manage to defend him and still manage to come up with crazy notions that there's a conspiracy against him, and, oh, why you know, why are you going after Black men, you know, and where's Harvey Weinstein and this, that, and the other. You know, he needs to be held accountable for his atrocities that he has conducted over and over again. And it's actually amazing that he isn't on trial for even more crimes. I think he's getting off quite easy with what he is alleged to have done.
Faraji, I'm going to get you in here before we have to move on to our next story. What are your thoughts on the most recent developments in the R. Kelly trial?
First, I appreciate you, Reese, for making that, for bringing that to the light about Aaliyah. I think that it's interesting that the prosecutors decided to use her story, and I mean, I'm glad that they used her story, because so many of us probably were still in the dark about really how deep that rabbit hole goes in terms of, you know, him starting to even look at Aaliyah at the age of 12, and then having sexual, you know, relationships with her, you know, shortly thereafter. Then the whole scare about him getting pregnant, and then leading to the fake, the fake documents and the whole nine about, you know, her age. And I mean, when you get to it, and I'm with Reese 1000%, absolutely sickening. I mean, folks, when you read, when I read the account of the testimony from what they classified as Jane Doe number 5, I believe, which is Azriel McClary, who was a part of that that historic conversation with Gayle King when they had that major interview, you know, and how she said she lied during that interview, how she even, you know, R. Kelly was in the room and had coughed a couple of times if he felt like the answers were a little bit too incriminating for him about him. I mean, when you read these details, there's no way in the world that you can have a conversation and still say, oh, he's a musical genius. I can separate him from the music. Well, you know, there's no way in the world that we can look at even the story of Aaliyah. And I'm with Reese 1000% on this. She's not here to even defend herself. We celebrated, or we acknowledged the 20-year death anniversary of our dear beloved sister. 20 years. She lost her, she was not here with us, and she can't defend herself. And I don't know, you know, it left a bad taste in my mouth that the prosecutors used her story in such a way that you didn't bring the parents in, you didn't bring any other close friends or relatives of Aaliyah into the conversation, onto the stand. But R. Kelly, folks, he deserves everything he gets. And if you sit there and tell me to this day that R. Kelly still should not get what he deserves because you don't think you're absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I'm telling you, there's nothing else to it. You're just insane.
Dr. Carr, I know you have predicted before how you thought that this trial was going to go. Has anything shocked you or changed your mind in terms of believing that R. Kelly just might get off?
No. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. I mean, you know, first of all, there's no moral standard in this country, just like there's no moral standard in Western civilization. And the rich hide their crimes. There was a president of the United States caught on tape saying, I moved on her like a bitch. You can grab them by the P word. And he sat in the office and was elevated. This isn't defending R. Kelly at all. This is saying that the madness runs deep in the human spirit. And people who are looking for an excuse will find one. Now, it's more likely than not that he will be convicted. And as we know, he's not just facing a New York court. He's got charges in several states. And as we just heard from everyone, these witnesses, I mean, no human can hear that and not be moved. But the deep thing about this, I think, is that when we look in the mirror, when it's just us, we have to confront the fact that somewhere in every human being, there's something in our spirit, in our psyche, that must make us wonder, what kind of society do we live in? And do we really know the people we're talking to? Do we really know who we're dealing with? Because somebody, look, any lawyer will tell you, I just need one in the box. I don't need to convince all the jury. I just need enough to get the guy off. What are the odds? What are the odds? We just got to wait and see, y'all. At least that's what I think.
Hey, Doc, can we also just, and Reese, I love to get your thoughts on this. People have been saying, look at the parents, that the parents are to blame. But I don't think you can blame the parents necessarily. And I get it, but I understand it's easy to quote unquote blame the parents for wanting to, your daughter to be associated with this man. But I don't know. It's hard, and I would love to get, I know that there's a lot of conversation that we should blame the parents. We should charge the parents. We should punish the parents because they put their daughters in that position.
Now, Faraji, we had to ask Amisha.
R. Kelly put their daughters in that position. And I think that it's very frustrating to see in any case where there is molestation, where there is rape, where there is sexual violence of any kind, parents get blamed for that. Because at the end of the day, this was a grown man making adult decisions. And the adult decisions he made was to prey on middle school kids and to prey on early high school kids. This was a guy who literally parked his car outside of middle schools and waited for young girls to come out. This was a guy who went to the very well-known hangouts of teens in the city and would try to entice girls. He would buy them clothes. He would buy them shoes. He would tell them that he could make them into superstars. He could make them into Aaliyah. He made dozens upon dozens of promises to these young girls. And then, like many people who are manipulative, like many people who are abusers, he abused them. He scared them to death. He segmented them from their family and friends. And at the end of the day, they were stuck in basically a torture chamber of sorts for years. I think that the only person that we can honestly blame here and put a lot of the blame on, it lands squarely on R. Kelly. Now, if we want to look at some other people, look at the people around him who made it happen. The people who were his transport staff, the people who bought plane tickets for these young girls, the people who ensured that R. Kelly's no read and tell would be able to create fake IDs and a whole bunch of other things for these young children, because that's what happened. He didn't do this solo. He had a whole team of people who made it possible.
That's right.
And that's what makes it satanic. That really, I mean, that's what makes it satanic. You had grown-ass men and some women who allowed this to happen. And we know it. We hear the stories, and we see those level of enablers. And and I'm going to just tell you honestly, it's 2021. If you find a consciousness in 2021 after years of this, and you finally say, I had to say something on the stand, man, get the hell out of my damn face, man. Like, you finally had a damn heart.
No, they finally tried to not get massive charges, is what they did.
Right. Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Football bans and one of the best fan experiences in the country. The Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge kickoff returns to Atlanta on August 28th, along with special guests, College Game Day. Then Alcorn State takes on North Carolina Central with conference bragging rights on the line. Center Park Stadium is the place to be on August 28th. Come tailgate all day before enjoying a primetime matchup on the gridiron. You don't want to miss this. Check out MEACSWACChallenge.com for more information.
And of course, folks, join Roland Martin Unfiltered in Atlanta Friday and Saturday for the SWAC MEAC Challenge. Friday, we'll be broadcasting live from the Atlanta Braves baseball game. We'll be hearing from the commissioners of the SWAC and MEAC, plus school presidents and other great guests. On Saturday, we'll be from the Coca-Cola fan zone at the stadium where the game is taking place. We'll be broadcasting live. Some great things going on. Tigger's going to be spinning. They got some chefs out there with the Coca-Cola kitchen. We're going to have some phenomenal stuff for you. Plus, we'll be live streaming the halftime show and the concert after the game. Check out Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday and Saturday. And we thanks all of this in partnership with Coca-Cola, the SWAC MEAC Challenge. We'll see y'all there. The House just passed the John Lewis Voting Act. It was a vote of 219 to 212. Not a single Republican actually voted for this. This obviously is important. The issue we still have, though, is what happens in the United States Senate. Mustafa, voting rights advocates have been pushing for this issue, but the bottom line still is, if you do not get Arizona Senator Kristen Sinema as well as Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia off of their butts to end the filibuster, it's a bill that passes in the House but goes nowhere in the Senate.
That's the fight that we still have, is to hold these folks accountable. I mean, if you're a Democrat, act like a Democrat. If you don't want to be a Democrat, switch parties and let people know exactly who you are and what you stand for and which policies that you're going to get behind. This is so incredibly important. I mean, we know the sacrifices that John gave throughout his life, and also pushing to make sure that folks actually have the opportunity to be able to vote in a fair and equitable process. And this helps to restore, some of the things that have been stripped away by the Supreme Court case. But as we get to the Senate, that's why, folks, you got to use your power. You got to pick up the phone. You got to call. And when you see folks that are actually up there that are rallying and getting arrested, if you have the ability to show up, then you got to show up, because this is so critically important. Because if we don't make sure that this gets passed and the For the People Act, then all the things that we continue to fight for are actually in dire straits. So I'm glad that the House did this. You saw, as you said, Roland, that no Republicans supported this. That in itself sends a very clear message about where they are. But the fight now is in the Senate.
Lauren, what actually is this bill? Does it have any teeth?
Yeah, it's a $3.5 trillion bill that has some climate change money in there. It's got health care. It's got
no, Lauren, that's the infrastructure bill. I'm talking about the John Lewis voting bill.
Yeah, John Lewis bill. Sorry, sure. Pre-clearance. It basically has pre-clearance in there. And frankly, I was wanting Nancy Pelosi to throw that bill out there and have these people, these 8 so-called moderates, explain why they would be blocking that. Because if you're a member of the Democratic Party, this is the whole ball game. As so many of your other guests have said, voting rights activists have said a million times, if you don't fix the voting system in the country, the Democratic Party is in huge trouble. We have the Republicans changing the law to make it harder to vote. So the John Lewis bill effectively restores preclearance and fixes what John Roberts broke in 2013. So why you would be fooling around with a bill that would interfere with that, I have absolutely no idea, particularly if you're a member of the Democratic Party. That made no sense whatsoever. Just that piece in there, to say nothing of the infrastructure money and everything else that's in there. So yeah, that bill fixes what the Supreme Court did. Effectively, it forces states to who have had a history of effectively, making it harder for people to vote. It basically restores preclearance, and that without that, everything that was worked on in the 1960s is sort of moot, frankly. But I guess we can't complain because I guess we just saw a huge victory for the president today. But at the same time, they do have to step it up, their arguments for voting rights, because I really think that to say that this is a pivotal moment with regard to voting and the party, the Democratic Party in particular, and Donald Trump coming back into power possibly if the Republicans get what they want through effectively fooling around with the voting system and in some cases, I think, cheating. I mean, when you're installing things into law that would make it possible for some local official to decide an election, what do you think that they're planning to do? This sort of reminds me, too, that Jane Mayer recently wrote a piece in the New Yorker on what is funding all of these efforts against voting rights, which was an extremely frightening piece, quite frankly. And the Republicans are laser focused on making it harder to vote. And frankly, I think they're laser focused on gaming and creating a system where they can cheat and steal an election. And if you're not awake to that by this point, I don't know what's going on. Unless Manchin and Sinema are going to switch parties, which Mustafa just referenced, I don't understand what they're thinking as this bill goes toward the Senate.
This the thing here, Teresa, that cracks me up. So this here is a graphic that Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick put out about their BS voter integrity bill. Go to my iPad, please. He just put this out. Election integrity bill, easy to vote, hard to cheat. Your employer must give you time off to go vote. If the polls close and you're in line, you will still be allowed to vote. You can do that right now, y'all. 55 Texas counties will be required to have longer voting hours. Saturday and Sunday voting hours will be increased. Of course, what they did not tell you is that how they want to take away the drop boxes. They want to stop Harris County for allowing 24-hour voting. They also don't like curbside voting, and there are other restrictions they have. Texas is already the hardest place to vote in the country. And so nice, cute attempt by Dan Patrick to lie to the public, Teresa.
Yeah, I thought it was a very strategic 3-point plan without the other 10 facets that the people really needed to have a full analysis of the situation. Listen, I think the bottom line was the same thing Mustafa and Lauren already stated. Voter suppression is still here. Again, the Senate kind of needs to get in line. But Biden made it very clear when he was here in Philadelphia that there needs to be a clear path on both sides. And I think that could potentially happen, but it has to be, again, with the right advocacy and the right leaders that say they represent the Democratic Party.
Folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment.
All right, folks, if you want to get a couple of the products of Seek.com, black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. They have these amazing 360-degree headphones, tremendous sound. The bass is incredible. And so they also have their virtual reality headsets. You place your phone into it. You can see the VR content. at seek.com, seek.com, or you can watch 360-degree videos. All you got to do is go to seek.com, use the promo code RMVIP21, RMVIP21, so you can actually get those products. And then when you purchase one of them, or both, those portion of the proceeds comes back to us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. So we certainly thank Mary Spiel and Seek for being a partner with us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. Let's go to Miami, where the white Miami man who brandished a gun at a teen during the Black Lives Matter protest is asserting the Stand Your Ground laws justify his actions. Mark Bartlett faces 5 charges of carrying a concealed weapon, 3 counts of aggravated assault with prejudice, and improper exhibition of a firearm for the 2019 incident. The protesters flooded the streets, and Bartlett got out of his car with his gun to confront the teens. Watch this.
Don't touch me, touch me, you bunch of thugs! Fuck you, bitch! Fucking white ass. Get the whoa! Who did? That guy in the red? Yeah, right behind this guy. You ran over my foot! Piece of shit! You fucking losers! You ran over my foot! Fucking stupid niggas. You guys keep moving. Fucking dumbass fucking niggas. And this guy right now. Y'all gonna be on the news. Y'all gonna make the news. That's fine. All right. Fucking idiots. Y'all stupid niggas. Listen, you stupid niggers. Put that gun to my head, bitch.
Well, of course, you saw that where Bartlett was yelling racial slurs. Bartlett's attorney says that his use of force is justified. Kelly, you jump your ass out your car with your gun, yell racial slurs to confront me because of blocking the street, and that's justified? Is he law enforcement or is he George Zimmerman?
I mean, it sounds about white to me. You know, none of that was justified. Absolutely none of that was justified. The fact that he felt, you know, emboldened enough to get out of his car and act like he owned whatever ground that young man was standing on to tell him what to do. I mean, it's the caucasity for me, but it's also expected from racists who don't know their place in society, which is to basically mind your own business and keep it pushing. This was a peaceful protest. They were completely within the right to protest that day. What he did not have the right to do is what he did, which is why he's on trial right now. But this is by no means a stand your ground law. There was no castle around him that he owned. There was nothing around him that he needed to defend. He was the aggressor, and he should be treated as such under the law.
Brianna.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I mean, honestly, it's like I said, it's Florida. And so this problem happens over and over in Florida. I'm very familiar with Brickell. I actually was in the area during that time, and I don't know how he would get passed in this case, especially because of, you know, the racial epithets he was, you know, spewing. But the issue though is the so-called stand your ground law in Florida. We've seen time and time again vigilantes being the judge, jury, and executioner. And so, like, you know, there's been from Trayvon Martin, from Marquise McLaughlin, there's been so many issues, and they've gone away with stand your ground. And, you know, stand your ground has no place in a civilized society. And, you know, as Kelly said, that he wasn't protecting his castle, even though in Florida that's not a criteria you need to defend your stand ground. But it allows anyone to feel who feels afraid, which he shouldn't have felt afraid, they got out the car, to murder and label it self-defense, to roll over someone's foot because they were in the way and she had to go pick up the kids from soccer. And it was just, you know, it bothered her and frustrated her because it took away her time. But, I mean, the reason they were protesting is because the injustices on their lives. And and that was such an inconvenience for her to even have to think about as a white person what we're going through as Black people. And so it's the stand your ground law disproportionately is used against people of color. And we really have to change it. And it's that hopefully, they take this case and do the right thing. Yeah, it's awful. And I don't think that you can use the stand your ground law.
Scott,
this.
I didn't realize, Scott, you can just jump your ass out anytime you want to and wave your gun at people because they're protesting. Didn't realize that was part of the stand your ground law.
It really isn't. And so, you know me, I love to analyze these videos, right? So who's driving the narrative, if you will? And the individuals in the Range Rover, whether they were white Americans or white Cubans, who's driving that narrative? The woman got out of the car and went to argue to try to get them to move. No one touched her. You will see the second individual next to the guy on the bike who stepped in front of her, and the guy in the red was trying to move away from her, and then she accuses him of running over her foot. Well, he wasn't riding his bike. If anything, the tire touched her. That's the first thing. Second of all, after the argument ensued, no one ever touched her. There were words exchanged, but at no time was she under any threat. Look at what happens there. They're arguing, but these young kids who were labeled thugs and N-words never touched her, right? They were in a peaceful protest. She's driving that narrative. And then the husband or boyfriend comes out with his gun with several people around, which is reckless endangerment, and he says, who did it? Who ran over your foot? Now, secondly, no one else is armed right now. No one has a stick or a knife, nor are they showing it, right? And so he's walking around cursing and using racial epithets, and he's got a 9mm in his hand as if he's under threat. Well, he's not under threat. His white privilege is telling him he's got to do something to protect his girlfriend, but he's never attacked either, right? So I'm standing my ground, and I saw where the lawyer argued that there were these young toughs around and they were banging on cars and they were scaring people. That's not what this video was about at all. This was a very personal video because they wanted to drive down the street and the protesters were blocking the street. And so, there's a liberal view, a wideband view of stand your ground, but this isn't it. In fact, the protesters were standing their ground and they were unarmed, nor did they ever touch any one of those, that man or that woman. That's going to be a hard defense. And the government's argument, or not the government, but the defense lawyers' argument was trying to convince the judge to allow that defense. And it's certainly, it's going to be up to the court as to whether he allows it. But I think it doesn't qualify for stand your ground at all, especially in this public place.
Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Football bands and one of the best fan experiences in the country. The Cricket BX SWAC Challenge kickoff returns to Atlanta on August 28th, along with special guests, College Game Day. Then Alcorn State takes on North Carolina Central with conference bragging rights on the line. Center Park Stadium is the place to be on August 28th. Come tailgate all day before enjoying a primetime matchup on the gridiron. You don't want to miss this. Check out MEACSWACChallenge.com for more information.
And, of course, folks, join Roland Martin Unfiltered in Atlanta Friday and Saturday for the SWAC MEAC Challenge. Friday, we'll be broadcasting live from the Atlanta Braves baseball game. We'll be hearing from the commissioners of the SWAC and MEAC, plus school presidents and other great guests. On Saturday, we'll be from the Coca-Cola fan zone at the stadium where the game is taking place. We'll be broadcasting live. Some great things going on. Tigger's going to be spinning. They got some chefs out there with the Coca-Cola kitchen. We're going to have some phenomenal stuff for you. Plus, we'll be live streaming the halftime show and the concert after the game. Check out Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday and Saturday. And we thanks all of this in partnership with Coca-Cola, the SWAC MEAC Challenge. We'll see y'all there. Let's talk about this story out of New Orleans, where a newly released video shows a Louisiana state trooper brutally beating a black man weeks after another black man died in state police custody. This footage shows the trooper pummeling the black motorist 18 times with a flashlight.
Go. Hang tight. I haven't done nothing. Give us your hand. Give me your fucking hand. Give me your fucking hand. Give me your hand. Give me I'm not resisting. I'm not resisting. Give me your hand. Give me your fucking hand. I ain't messing with you. Give him your fucking hand. Give me your hand. Okay. Hold up. Hold your back. Got it. Come on, man. Come on down. Hey, you damn right you are. Fuck up. Shut the fuck up. I'm bleeding. They hit me in the hand with a flashlight. I haven't done nothing, man.
Well, fighting us ain't gonna help you, bud.
I'm not fighting you.
You are.
You fight me.
You ain't listening.
I'm on dialysis, man. You hurt me. You hurt me. I don't have the... I haven't did nothing.
So sad.
Who's stopping that?
Now, folks, Associated Press obtained the video in 2019. The Louisiana State Police actually tried to keep it a secret of the encounter. It left Aaron Larry Bowman with a broken jaw, broken ribs, and other injuries. It came less than 3 weeks after troopers punched, stunned, and dragged another black man, Ronald Green, before he died in custody. Remember, they said Green died in a traffic accident. Federal prosecutors are examining both cases in a widening investigation into police brutality and potential cover-ups. And that right there, Scott, is the big issue. It's the cover-up, how the Louisiana State Patrol tried to keep it a secret.
Well, that comes from the top, and that's culture. Now, you and I have broken down these videos to the point where we're so tired of breaking them down. But I'll say it one more time and try to be as brief as possible. If you look at that video, right, when the police put you on the ground and say, put your hands behind you, it is anti-physics for you to do so if you've got 3 or 4 people with your knee on your back and you're beating the shit out of me with a flashlight, trying to get me to comply with putting my arms behind my back. It is not possible. And so the police here are using deadly force to force compliance with a simple order of putting your hands behind your back. How am I going to put my hands behind my back if you're beating me with a blunt instrument and you're breaking my jaw, you're breaking my ribs? How can I put my hands behind my back when I'm physically incapable of, because of the physical abuse I'm taking with a deadly blunt force object? That's the first thing. And so it's impossible. But again, it's against the law. It's against the law to use deadly force to force compliance with a simple police order. Thirdly, he was unarmed, right? He wasn't fighting back. He was reacting to getting beat, right? And the police didn't care. Eventually, they got his hands behind his back and they arrested him, but they damn near beat him to death. And you could see on the police officers' faces, they seemed to feel that they had accomplished this. It's fundamentally wrong in our training to believe you can use deadly force because a defendant or an arrestee is not cooperating. It's just so practical that that's just wrong and fundamentally bad training. And then the cover-up comes because leadership knows that they failed in the training, and this state police officer, who, by the way, this was not his arrest. He was just in the area. He stopped by to help, and then he started using a flashlight that had sharp objects at the end of the flashlight, according to the report. And so just really ugly. And you're right, the cover-up is almost worse than the bad conduct, but both are just unacceptable behavior. And that's why you see police chiefs who aren't doing their job at the top being fired across this country. But for 2 years, they held on to this. Evidence has dissipated. Witness memories have dissipated. And so whether he gets charged or prosecuted, you got to hope that the evidence and the witnesses and their memories are still in lock and step, because otherwise the feds will have a problem proving this case. It's an awful video. One of the worst ones you and I have reviewed over the last 2 or 3 years on this show.
And Kelly, this is why we consistently see the problems with these police departments, and they keep lying about it, and they want to cover it up. This is why you got to have federal intervention, and why you got to come down hard on these police thugs.
And that's exactly what they are. They are thugs. Like when I read in the article saying that the trooper defended his actions, his assault against this man as pain compliance, I mean, that just left the most sickening feeling in my stomach, meaning that you force somebody to comply using pain and you think that is okay. Like Scott said everything that needed to be said as far as this is just impractical training. It is immoral training. And it just does not make sense. It does not make sense from any perspective why this officer did that, but for his covertly and frankly, it's overtly racist bias towards this man. And I've said on your show before, just arrest me like I'm white. If you don't know how to act, if you don't know how to act as a police officer and govern yourself accordingly as law enforcement, just put your white feet in my shoes. Just arrest me like I'm white. Would you do this to you? No? Great. Don't do it.
Yeah, but you know, Roland, they don't see us.
Hold, Scott.
I got more to say.
Oh, okay. Well, goddamn it, you got to hold it.
I got more to say now. Now, don't start with me today. I've been good.
Shut your ass up. Shut your ass up, and then you can talk until after Brianna get done. Now, sit your ass back and be quiet. Monique not here. Robert not here. So you think your ass gonna get their time? No. Brianna, go.
Okay, I will this time. You go right ahead, Brianna.
She don't need your damn permission to go. All day I told her to go. Scott, be quiet. Brianna, go ahead.
Thank you for that humor, because that video was very, very sad. And we've had these conversations previously before, and they keep going on and on and on. New polls say that the rate at which Black Americans are being killed by police at this point is twice as high as the rate for white Americans. And it's totally unacceptable. It's no secret that this police brutality is a national crisis at this point, and it's disproportionately affecting us as Black people. And, you know, that's why leaders like Senator Warnock and Barbara Lee are leading this fight for the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And this act would outlaw no knock warrants, which we've seen with Breonna Taylor, ban chokeholds, prohibit racial profiling, require the use of body cameras, limit the amount of military-grade weaponry that is used by the police. I mean, this will do so much more, but we really need to take out the military part of the police. And so it's important to pass the bill. And it's no surprise, as we've talked previously on this show, earlier on in this, just this one, that Republicans in Congress are fighting tooth and nail to destroy it. And they want to protect the police officers when they see fit. And so, but it's putting millions of our lives at risk, and everything's on the line, and there needs to be drastic change at this point.
Video in just one moment.
Football bands and one of the best fan experiences in the country. The Cricket BX SWAC Challenge kickoff returns to Atlanta on August 28th, along with special guests, College Game Day. Then Alcorn State takes on North Carolina Central with conference bragging rights on the line. Center Park Stadium is the place to be on August 28th. Come tailgate all day before enjoying a primetime matchup on the gridiron. You don't want to miss this. Check out MEACSWACChallenge.com for more information.
And course, folks, join Roland Unfiltered in Atlanta Friday and Saturday for the SWAC MEAC Challenge. Friday, we'll be broadcasting live from the Atlanta Braves baseball game. We'll be hearing from the commissioners of the SWAC and MEAC, plus school presidents and other great guests. On Saturday, we'll be from the Coca-Cola fan zone at the stadium where the game is taking place. We'll be broadcasting live. Some great things going on. Tigger's going to be spinning. They got some chefs out there with the Coca-Cola kitchen. We're going to have some phenomenal stuff for you. Plus, we'll be live streaming the halftime show and the concert after the game. Check out Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday and Saturday. And we thanks all of this in partnership with Coca-Cola, the SWAC MEAC Challenge. We'll see y'all there.
Let me bring in my guest right now because I need them to weigh in on this. And Busta, if you are watching this video, I want you to hear. This is Dr. Christy McDowell. She is a microbiologist and CEO and founder of Baby Scientist Inc. She is not a rapper. She is a microbiologist, a trained scientist who went to school, and the bars that she is about to drop, Buster, deals with science and COVID. We'll also join Buster by Dr. Joseph L. Graves Jr., professor of biological sciences at North Carolina A&T University. The bars that he is going to drop, Buster, will explain to you the Delta variant and why masks matter in stopping the transmission. And then we have Dr. Alexia Gaffney, MD, an infectious disease specialist, who, Buster, is going to drop some bars to explain to you, somebody who had breathing difficulties, what it's like when you get COVID and what it does to your precious lungs that was your God-given freedom that God gave to you when you were born. So let me start first with you, Dr. McDowell. When you hear entertainers who have become Google physicians make statements like this publicly, that then spreads across the world, explain why it makes your job harder in trying to convince folks not to play games with COVID.
Good evening, Roland. Thanks for having me. You know, it angers me as well, and it vexes my soul when I hear entertainers and other people who have mass followings say ignorant things such as Busta Rhymes. And I was telling my students today about wearing a mask and getting vaccinated. Think about it. You know, I'm not a gambler, but when I do go to the casino and I lose a little money, I'm upset, $20, $40. But think about it. If you don't get the vaccine, you're gambling with your life. There's no way to leave with a tear and sad, and maybe you can borrow some money, but you cannot borrow another life. Okay? And masks protect you from spreading it as well as getting it from someone else. And Busta said, COVID can suck his genitalia. Well, let me tell you what's going to suck something if you don't get the vaccine. That virus. It's going to suck the oxygen out of your body to the point where the cells in your lungs are destroyed You won't have the amount of oxygen that your body needs to oxygenate your blood, which in turn oxygenates your other organs in your body, which in turn allows you to live. So if you don't have the oxygen to oxygenate your blood and your organs, what's going to happen? They will eventually shut down. And I read today, one of the doctors from Alabama, she got real candid with the people. She said, if you get on the ventilator, you won't come off. I mean, it's as real as it gets. You're gambling with your life. You want to live, you want to die. You make the choice. It's that crucial. It's that crucial. And it really angers me when I hear these Google scientists out here spitting this verbiage that is not correct. And like I told my students today, stay in your lane. If your lane is rapping, be the best rapper. If your lane is science, stay in the lane of science. But don't be out here trying to do the job of someone else that you are not educated to do. And that's what I want to impart.
I want to go to Dr. Joseph Graves. Dr. Graves, we've had you on since last year. And you explained to people last year that if they did not wear masks, did not social distance, did not get vaccinated, that we are going to see these variants take place. And then you said if they continue to do it, it's going to get deadlier and deadlier and deadlier. And so when you, what would you say to Busta Rhymes after listening to what he articulated that has now gotten millions of views across this country?
Roland, it's one thing to do stupid things that put your own life at risk. And certainly, I don't have the right to tell Busta Rhymes how to live. It is an entirely another thing when you take a public platform and you use your celebrity to get up there to tell other people that it's okay in the middle of the deadliest pandemic since 1918. Those people who die because they listened to his video are going to be on his soul. And he's going to have to answer to God for his actions, the things that he said in public, the irresponsible behavior. And one thing I wanted to say, so people understand just how dangerous COVID is. I was in a very high-level meeting at noon today where scientists that I know and respect were calculating how many virus particles it takes to establish a COVID infection in an individual. Turns out it takes only 3. Now, why does wearing a mask help? Because it reduces the number of viruses that get to you. The more viruses that get to you, the higher the likelihood that at least 3 of them can end up establishing an infection in your body. So people who think that they can go around and they can ignore the safety precautions, they're doing just as the last speaker described. They're gambling with their lives and the lives of their loved ones and even people they don't know. And that's not freedom, that's a license. And you do not have a license to take other people's lives because of your own stupidity.
Dr. Gaffney, we are seeing, and we have seen, how black people have been adversely impacted by COVID-19. In a moment, I'm going to talk to Butch Graves, CEO of Black Enterprise. The federal government has failed to ensure that adequate dollars are coming to black-owned media for us to be able to educate our people. Talk about what we have witnessed from the beginning of COVID and how black people have been more adversely impacted by COVID than anybody else.
Yeah. So Black people entering into American healthcare systems are more likely to receive disparate healthcare than our white counterparts. We are more likely to be taken care of in healthcare systems that are underfunded, under-resourced, don't have access to experimental therapies, which, you know, for anybody who does not yet know, when you enter into a hospital setting for COVID-19 infection, the therapies that you get are considered experimental. They're emergency use authorized, right? So for everybody who's running around screaming they're not getting a vaccination because the vaccine's not FDA approved or because the vaccines are experimental and they don't want to get experimented on, you know, it's the same guidance that we have for the treatments that we're using for COVID-19 infections. So let's just get that out of the way. We as a people, we're more likely to be overweight or obese for cultural reasons, for socioeconomic reasons, because of living in food deserts and things like that. We are more likely to have the comorbid conditions that increase our risk to be hospitalized and to die of COVID-19. High blood pressure, diabetes, asthma. We live in areas of the country where the air quality is poorer, and that has contributed to adverse outcomes from COVID-19. So while our white counterparts were in hospitals where when they went on the ventilator and died at rates of 15 and 20% on the high end, when Black folks and brown folks and indigenous folks went into the hospital in the earliest parts of the COVID-19 pandemic, they died at rates as high as 88%, okay? And so I say it all the time, I use me as an example. I, as a woman in a Black body, have zero interest in getting infected with COVID-19, going in the hospital and expecting the people there who are going to give me biased care, who's going to give me disparate care, who may not fight like hell to keep my Black ass alive. I'm not placing myself in their hands and hoping that I come out on the other side of it alive. You know, I've seen what it looks like for someone who's hospitalized on a ventilator for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, things that we would never ever consider doing in the past to keep somebody alive, and they come out paralyzed, they come out with loss of organ functions, come out with, you know, cognitive dysfunction, inability to think, inability to breathe on oxygen, inability to work. And yet we will go out into the world and, you know, jump outside of our lanes, as was said, speak about things we have no idea about, and not respect the consequences of these decisions and these lies that we're spreading. Black folks cannot afford to be a part of this whole anti-vax conversation and this anti-mask BS. We want cake, we want ice cream, we want sprinkles, we want whipped cream, we want a cherry on top. And the reality is we can't have all of that. Under the best of circumstances, we're still going to die more than our white counterparts. So we have to do everything possible to protect ourselves. So if you don't want to wear a mask, maybe you should stay home. If you don't want to get a vaccine, then maybe you should keep a mask on and stay home. But we can't be in a position where we're telling people, don't wear a mask, come out, be in the crowd, eat at the restaurant, smile at the cute chick, and spread some COVID virus and not worry about the consequences. Because running around with no mask, unvaccinated, doing what we want to do is the equivalent of putting a blindfold on, taking a loaded gun, and just aiming. And at some point, you're just going to hit somebody. And we have, like you said, we have to live with the consequences of the things that we said. We have to live with the consequences of our actions. And the stakes are incredibly high. Life is on the line, and Black folks and brown folks and indigenous folks are going to be more disproportionately impacted by this in the short term and in the long term. And then we're kidding ourselves if we think we can play the same games that our privileged counterparts get to play. We just can't.
Folks, this is if y'all see my iPad, go ahead and go to it. Kelly Reinke posted this today. This is what she said. On the left, fitness coach Bill Phillips pre-COVID. On the right, 70 pounds lighter, barely surviving COVID-19 after deciding not to get the vaccine. He's getting discharged from St. Anthony Hospital on Wednesday with a new outlook on life and the shot. This is how he looked before COVID and how he looked on the right after COVID. That right there explains what we're dealing with. He lived, but trust me, he is not going to have the same quality of life that he had before. I want to thank our 3 doctors and scientists for coming on. I want it, and we're going to keep doing this, because what I am not going to do is I am not going to cede any ground to Busta Rhymes, to Tank, to anybody else who puts stuff out there. Sure, you may not have millions who watch this show and who watch this video, but there's no way in hell I'm going to be given a platform and not use it for the good of black people and allow this nonsense into young black people who listen to rappers. Y'all better understand, if your ass gets sick and die from COVID, Busta Rhymes will not be paying your funeral bills.
That's right. That's right.
Folks, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Yes,
you.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to
Go ahead.
encourage all of the people, if you do get sick and you find yourself in the hospital, please ask for the drug remdesivir, the monoclonal antibody. Ask for an infusion of that drug. They don't give it to people that look like us. And I had a friend who I told to ask for it, and the nurse was really surprised that she knew about it. And she's like, how did you know about it? She said, because I have a friend that's a scientist. So I want everyone else out there, if you have a loved one who is sick, tell them to ask for that monoclonal antibody infusion. It will save their life.
All right, folks. Again, I appreciate it. Thank you for your expertise and your knowledge. And that's why we're going to keep putting, again, our black experts out here so our people can hear from actual experts. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. All right, folks, if you want to, get a couple of the products of Seek.com, black-owned company founded by Mary Spio. They have these amazing 360-degree headphones, tremendous sound. The bass is incredible. And so they also have their virtual reality headsets. You place your phone into it. You can see the VR content at Seek.com, CEEK.com, or you can watch 360-degree videos. All you got to do is go to Seek.com, use the promo code RMVIP21, RMVIP21. You can actually get those products. And then when you purchase one of them, or both, those portion of the proceeds comes back to us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. So we certainly thank Mary Spio and Seek for being a partner with us here at Roland Martin Unfiltered. Yeah, we all know how wild and crazy the last year of Donald Trump's presidency was, but folks, it was even nuttier than you think. Philip Rucker and Carol Leone have break it all down in their book, I Alone Can Fix It, Donald J. Trump's catastrophic final year. I had an opportunity to sit with both of them to talk about the craziness that took place in the roller coaster this country went on in 2020. Here's our conversation. All right, let's get right into it. Carol and Philip, I got to tell you, reading I Alone Can Fix It, I'm sitting there as somebody who lived through it, who was there in Cleveland when he gave that speech, when he gave that line, and I'm reading this book and I'm going, I knew it was nuts, but this is really crazy. What this nation went through over the last 4 years with Donald Trump sitting in the Oval Office.
You said a mouthful there, Roland. I'm not sure your question, but that's exactly how Phil and I felt reporting this book. You know, we were covering it in real time too. We were thinking we were doing a pretty decent job of writing about this for the Washington Post and for the public in 2020. But it turned out when we did the deeper excavation, it was so much more crazy, dangerous, and sort of spine chilling, bone chilling to walk through it again with some of the people that had been pretty silent about how frightened they were about Donald Trump's impulses, his idea of governing, and his quest to maintain his grip on power. You know, human lives really be damned.
You know, Philip, it was just, again, just reading the first 100 pages, it was just one after another. And when I think back to just the first month of the presidency, I remember everybody was going, is this what it's going to be like for the next 4 years? And the answer was yes.
Yeah, I think that's right. You know, we all experienced as Americans following the news and covering the news, the chaos, right? The daily and hourly news cycles of one crisis after another, after another, after another. And what Carol and I tried to do with this book, just as we did with our first book, A Very Stable Genius, is kind of hit pause and go back and take readers behind the scenes and let people really see what was going on in real time and in real life. It's so much more dangerous and chaotic and harrowing than we could see in public at the time. But when you sit down with those officials and really recount for the benefit of history what was going on, what the president was saying, what ideas he was proposing, what almost happened that didn't happen because some servant, public servant stood in the way, you start to realize that this country really was on the brink of changing, of our democracy falling.
And the thing that really, I think that really jumps out, I mean, y'all detail in, really the beginning of the book, this obviously the pandemic, COVID-19. And if he had probably done a decent job, re-election would have been easy. I mean, so even with all the other stuff, all the other reporting, all the other things that went besides the pandemic, his base was so solid, the Republicans were so solid behind him, folks would have been perfectly fine with him getting another 4 years.
I think that couldn't be truer. I think that's exactly what was sort of fated to happen, was for him to have a second term. The economy was doing great. He was chugging along. Even if the economy took a hit from the pandemic, he was viewed as the defender for such a large portion of America, and Republicans were in lockstep with him. But exactly what you said, Roland, is what the Attorney General, who we all thought was completely beholden and loyal to Donald Trump, it's exactly what Bill Barr said to the president in a very sort of prescient warning in the spring of 2020. He said this chaos surrounding COVID, people are scared. They actually know some people who are sick, and they're watching these news conferences where you give these ideas of bleach injection, or you fight with your aides about whether or not masks should happen. This chaotic way you're dealing with COVID is going to cost you the election. He said he had a foreshadowing, as he told Trump, that he was going to lose just the way George H.W. Bush lost in '92 when Barr was his attorney general. And he couldn't have been more right. It did center so much on the fear around COVID and whether or not the president really knew how to handle or had the toolkit for a crisis.
Philip, Peter Russell was a deputy press secretary for Vice President George H.W. Bush. And Peter was one of my professors at Texas A&M University. And one of the things that he said to me was, he said, Roland, the interesting thing is that the thing that people most like about you, meaning he was speaking of anybody, is the same thing people don't like. And folks, people who supported Donald Trump, black male voters, others, Trump is going to do what he says and mean what he says, and he doesn't give an inch. And both of you write when Anthony Fauci said that is a failing, let's admit it. Failing was not a word Trump was going to let stand. Here was somebody who was so hell-bent on, I'm not going to give an inch, I'm not going to admit failure, I'm not going to say we screwed up, I'm not going to apologize. Even when this man flirted with death with COVID, it was still, I'm going to play tough, take my mask off, when he was up there clearly laboring, with his breath. And that was the thing that really just jumped out. He could not, in any circumstance, show any level of compassion or concern for what was happening to the rest of Americans. And that's what cost him the election. That's what caused people to say, you know what, this guy's got to go.
Yeah, I think you're onto something there, Roland, and that's a smart point about Trump's sort of inability and refusal, really, to admit failure of any kind in any circumstance. And I think what's at the heart of it is that he viewed governing as a public relations campaign. Governing was a branding exercise for Trump. He's been a salesman his whole life, whether he's selling real estate or reality television programs or his own political campaign. And when he became president, that toolkit, that kind of salesman's toolkit of bragging and bluster and bullying just didn't work when he faced a real crisis in the coronavirus. I mean, lives were at stake, and his inability to manage that crisis, and also his inability to tell the truth to the American people, to level with folks about the severity of the threat, and to show any sort of compassion or empathy for those who were losing their lives. Taken together, it had deadly consequences for the country, and I think you're absolutely right. That's the reason why, in the end, he lost re-election and was denied that second term.
Carol, you have covered Washington, D.C. You understand power. You understand politics. You understand what happens when you no longer have power. In your reporting, were the two of you even shocked at how Republican Party leaders, up and down, simply did not have a moral compass, did not have, I'm using my words, obviously, a moral compass, principle or values, who said, you know what, doesn't matter. He said he's Republican. We're going to go along with it. I think about that New York piece, New Yorker magazine piece of James Baker in September, and where his whole deal is, I'm a Republican, and so, hey, yeah, these things bother me, but I'm going to support, that's who's in power. They didn't care. They just didn't care. It was he was a means to an end. He was a means to being in control.
Well, you're absolutely right about two pieces there that are so fascinating. I mean, it's not the job of a reporter like myself or Phil to talk about people's moral compasses, but I'll say this on those 2 points you sound out. One, in many ways, Donald Trump kind of blew through the guardrails, blew through the norms of Washington. Law didn't matter, politeness didn't matter, partisanship that was nitty gritty and dirty didn't matter. You know, the basic benefit of the country. When you're governing, when you're a servant in the people's house, you're supposed to care about what happens to the people. That didn't matter either. And what Republicans in the legislature learned was, you know what, Donald Trump didn't pay any price for behaving that way. In fact, all he did was gain more steam and gain more power. You're right about COVID, right? That took him off the rails because people were frightened. And it looked so insane every day on that newsstand where he was giving the press conferences and none of it made sense. But Republicans learned a lesson just as Donald Trump was learning a lesson. There wasn't a political cost to behaving the way he did, to breaking the law, as prosecutors found in the Mueller probe, because he wasn't indicted, he wasn't charged, he couldn't be as the sitting president. And they learned that his vote base was loyal. His voter base was there for him, whether he enacted the policies he promised, whether he told the truth or not, whether he did anything of value for them. As long as he was on a soapbox saying he defended them and he cared about them and he cared about the America they believed in, whatever amorphous thing that was, those voters were with him. So that's a powerful lesson if you're trying to keep your job as a Republican in Congress, because you know you don't have to pay a price for how you behave, and you need the votes that Donald Trump, even after the presidency, still controls, still shepherds.
And Philo, I think we saw that when Donald Trump attacked Senator John McCain about being a prisoner of war. And again, conventional wisdom, oh my God, how dare you? All the people who so-called love veterans and love the flag and revered Senator John McCain, people said, whatever the hell, that's all fine. And that to me, in real time, I was warning people, folks, if he's able to get away with that, you can forget about any other norms. And I think it was this constant deal in the media. Okay, have we reached bottom? I don't think there was ever a bottom with a Donald Trump presidency. I don't think that even now, even with all the claims of him saying, the election was stolen, there is no bottom. When someone doesn't care, they don't care.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think Trump has proven over these years that at least when it comes to him in politics, there is no bottom. And I'm glad you brought up that McCain example. I was there in 2015 in Iowa at the family leader event where Trump made those comments about McCain. And I remember watching it and looking at the other reporters who were sitting around the table with me. And we all thought, oh boy, he really stepped in it. This is going to be the end for Trump's nascent presidential campaign. And sure enough, he didn't lose a single voter over it. And it was a remarkable show of his kind of Teflon quality within the Republican Party. And it just speaks to the fact that so many of his voters were making moral calculations. They decided to look past his transgressions, look past the nasty, petty attacks, look past the Access Hollywood video, grab women by the you-know-what, all because they thought he was fighting for him and because they thought they'd benefit from some of his policies, like his tax cuts. They could, somehow get rich, or the rich people could stay rich because of it. And they made these sacrifices, these kind of character trades, if it were. And that's how he ended up getting elected. And I think that's how he thought he was going to get reelected. And it's how he thinks today he might get back into the White House when he runs in 2024, which he seems to be intending to do.
Carol, a lot of media people really got caught up in the economic anxiety storyline. I was one of the people who was saying, y'all, this thing is white fear. My book comes out in the first quarter next year, because in 2009, there was a poll and it asked, are you optimistic about the future of America? And every group except white Americans, majority said yes. September 2016, question was asked, are you optimistic about the future of America economically for the next 10 years? Every group except white Americans, a majority. And when you listen to Trump supporters and Republican supporters, and then you saw the actions, and then you heard what they were saying, even now when you look at this whole brouhaha over critical race theory, which frankly no one even really knows about, so it's not even that big of a deal. I think what Donald Trump did was bring together all of these political forces that we have witnessed over the last 40, 50 years, the Southern strategy, this whole angst, Midwest white working class. Oh, they forgot about you. Oh, it was before it was the blacks in the 80s. Now it's the illegal immigrants. That was his whole deal with Trump. And so we're sort of now sitting in this space where we are moving towards becoming a nation, majority of people of color. And where he and the Republican Party sit is really at a place of, are they going to be the party, frankly, of white America or a diverse America? Just your thoughts and your reporting and look at these last 4 years about that thesis.
I think it's a really smart point to hit on. Now, I'm wary of one thing. Donald Trump's supporters can't be summarized as one monolithic element. But right. But I like the two pieces you're describing. For example, we have found in our reporting that there is an overwhelming number of white America, especially white male America and white working class America, that feels looked down upon, feels left behind. The economic winds are not blowing their way. They may be the first generation in their communities to see their children do less well than they did. And that is causing quite a bit of angst and anger, fear and anger. And what Donald Trump was able to do, as I remember, Don McGahn, White House counsel, he went to see Donald Trump campaign. And in our last book, we report about how electrifying he found Donald Trump on the stump. He didn't think this mogul guy from New York, this real estate developer, was going to have any appeal to working class white Americans, but he had an amazing connection with them. But here's the other unpleasant part of that connection. While he taps into their anger and their fear about how America's changing, which really means how they're not doing as well as they once were or how they expected to do, he amps up the volume on their fear and their anger. Over the 4 years of his presidency, we heard him say things along, and especially in 2020, you think you're safe and well. Joe Biden's going to bring Antifa to your suburbs and your communities. What else is that code for? That is code for they're going to, that is just strictly code for, your white communities are going to be overrun by people of color and dangerous people, violent people. When he was campaigning in 2016 and when he was pushing his border wall in 2017, what was he amping up in terms of fear and anger? He was talking about Mexicans being rapists and killers that were streaming across the borders. Again, amping up that fear and anger, not trying to tap into it and address it, but just increase it so that he could use it for his own political gain. Now, there's another, again, in the non-monolithic piece, there are rich people who believe they're going to get richer by Donald Trump's presidency, and that no doubt benefited him throughout the 2016 campaign, and he believed it would carry him a great deal in 2020. But unfortunately, there were a lot of people worried about whether or not he was going to be able to save them from a crisis, and not sure, in fact, quite convinced otherwise that he wouldn't.
Philip, on the point that Carol just made there, I would often say that you had these three forces that were actually moving down the same path. You had your national security Republicans who believed in the military-industrial complex. Oh, he's just going to just throw billions at the military. Cool, I'm down with it. Then you had the Grover Norquist Republicans who are all about taxes. Hey, fine, this guy's going to cut taxes. Doesn't matter what else he says, we're good. And then, of course, you had your white working class voters who, in their minds, hey, this guy's going to fight for us, even though when you look at his trade war against China, it screwed dairy farmers. It screwed folks, the soybean farmers, a lot of those same people. And I remember seeing this interview where there were a couple of them who filed for bankruptcy, lost their businesses, and they said, I will still vote for Donald Trump again. And I'm sitting there going, what in the hell are these people thinking? Where they actually lost their family farm and their business, and they still say, I'm going to vote for this guy. And it was just this. Rudy Giuliani, I remember he said, Trump is our last hope. And I obviously being black, look at that whole thing a whole different way than some other different people. And I think that we, as those of us in media, have to force ourselves to get out of the conventional political world and realize that when folks they're going after their hearts, when they're pushing those buttons, those angst buttons, that we have to factor in race, we got to factor in class, we got to factor in all these different things. And when a Trump comes along and goes, hey, I'm just going to blow through it all, and it creates this whirlwind, and people are left to figure out, okay, what's going on here? And I'm sitting here going, it's actually right in front of us if we pay attention to political history and how other candidates used it to their advantage to gain political wins.
I think that's right. I mean, you're right to point out the racial elements here. You can't separate politics from all of those other factors. And certainly Trump was a master at, the dog whistle, which was, really more of a bullhorn. I mean, he made no bones about what he was trying to communicate and to whom. The one thing we should keep in mind, though, is that the people receptive to that message did not make up a majority of this country. In fact, even when he won in 2016, he won with 3 million fewer popular votes than Hillary Clinton. And he did not have anywhere near the majority of the votes that were cast in 2016. And then, of course, in 2020, he finished even worse vis-a-vis Joe Biden. So, that is not the majority view in this country, but it certainly is a large part of this country. And Trump was very effective at mobilizing those voters through these sort of coded racial messages.
Are the both of you are both of you shocked that even after your book is out, even after these 4 years, that when you see folks like Senator Ron Johnson really holding on to the big lie and these other candidates and they're changing laws, and you're sitting here going, and I think, Carol, it probably goes to what you said earlier. Hey, there's no price to pay. He basically crossed the line. Everybody is cool, so what the hell? let's join them. But are the both of you surprised at what you're seeing, that he continues to dominate the party even though he lost?
There's nobody bigger than him right now, Roland, in the Republican Party. He's the standard bearer. If the primary was this week, he would be the Republican nominee for president. He's got that kind of power over voters who still view him almost as a demigod. I mean, let's keep in mind, thousands of them committed a felony almost at his request on January 6th, barged past police, broke into a federal building where there are no trespassing rules, carried weapons as they went. This is not what you're expecting from working class white Americans to start. And obviously, the DC wasn't prepared for this. They had this construct that they weren't expecting these folks to start beating up on police, but they did. And that's a lot of power. Again, I've read some of the white supremacist chat room conversations people had before January 6th. They were talking about dying for their flag and dying for Donald Trump. I don't know how much more powerful a bond there is. You asked if we're shocked. I feel surprised, and I don't, because he had a connection. He made them more upset and more angry, more fearful. And that hold is going to be hard to break. The only way it's going to be broken is if the leaders of the Republican Party who represent some of these red states start speaking the truth about what actually happened, what happened on January 6th, what happened in the election. Stop whispering it to Donald Trump and start telling it to voters.
Philip?
I think that's right. I mean, the only thing that surprises me, frankly, is that it took until January 6th of 2021 for one of Donald Trump's political events to turn violent and deadly. We were at a lot of those campaign rallies over the years, and it felt like kindling there. I mean, it felt like at any moment those crowds could erupt in anger and turn their violence on either the media or other people in their communities. And fortunately, that didn't happen very often. I'm just surprised it took until January 6th.
I know this may be the next question. I ask all authors this question when they work on books. And I'm sure y'all probably have more than one. And if you got two or three, that's fine. What was the wow moment for you in writing this? What was that one piece of research or comment or quote that caused you to literally stop writing and go, wow?
There were a lot. There were quite a few, Roland. I'm just going to try to keep it to two because Phil probably has quite a few as well. I remember when we were learning that in a meeting, Mark Milley was furious because Stephen Miller was telling the president in June that Black Lives Matter protesters were burning the country down. This is, again, right after George Floyd's death, after some protests outside Washington in that weekend. The tension is building, and Stephen Miller is explaining the country's burning down. These protesters are burning it down. And the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff turned around with all of his shoulder and his arm and said, "You shut the F up, Stephen. You don't know what you're talking about." That's a pretty big thing to say in the Oval Office.
Right.
The other thing that really surprised me and I had to fight to keep my jaw up was when the president said he had no regrets. Forgive me. When Donald Trump, the former president, told Phil in our interview in Mar-a-Lago that he had no regrets at all, except for one, that he wished he had unleashed active duty military. He wished he had overcome the objections of his Attorney General, his Secretary of Defense, his Chairman of Joint Chiefs Staff, who were constantly stopping this, and he wished he had sicked active duty military troops on Black Lives Matter protesters.
Wow. Yeah, that's a wow. Philip?
I'll just add one because Carol hit a couple of them there, and I obviously agree with what she said, and she speaks for both of us. But one other that surprised us both was to learn that in the weeks after the November 3rd election, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, who's the highest-ranking military officer in this country, a career public servant, a student of history, that he not only heard in Donald Trump's rhetoric parallels to Adolf Hitler, rising in power in Germany in the 1930s, but also feared that Trump would actually use the military, would issue an order as the commander-in-chief to try to execute a coup in order to stay in power despite having lost the election. That's how dangerous Trump was in the minds of the leaders of the military, and that's how close the country's democracy came to falling.
It is an absolute fascinating and intriguing read to go through this. I think I read the first 100 pages probably within a few hours on one night, and I'm just sitting there just shaking my head, going, "My God, what in the world would have happened if we had to deal with another 4 years of this mayhem?" It is I alone can fix it. And I think the subhead is apropos. Donald J. Trump's catastrophic final year. Carol, Philip, I certainly appreciate it. Great job with this book. And folks, definitely check it out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roland.
Thank you, Roland.
Folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Seek.com is founded by Mary Spio, a sister. It is a virtual reality company where they have content on their site. Again, Seek.com. They also have their products. They're the 360-degree headphones. These headsets are amazing. Tremendous bass. You can use these headsets for gaming as well. Plus, they have their virtual reality headsets where you place your cell phone into the device to allow you to see that VR content, but also 360-degree video. If you want to get that headphone, get those headphones or the VR headset, all you got to do is use this promo code RMVIP21, RMVIP21. Go to Seek.com to get their products. When you support them, you support us because a portion of the proceeds come back to us at Roland Martin Unfiltered. In the R. Kelly trial, on day 3, Anthony Navarro, who worked for R. Kelly, testified the artist created an environment where he called all the shots. The former employee says that Kelly controlled whether visitors at the Chicago area mansion could leave or even order takeout food. The testimony bolstered the government's contention that R. Kelly controlled everything around him and created an environment where girls and women who entered the space faced strict rules that gave them little choice but to submit to the singer's sexual whims. Now, on yesterday, the doctor who treated R. Kelly for herpes said that he would often, that he allowed him to see him, but not necessarily treat him. In fact, that when he was initially called because R. Kelly was concerned that he had chlamydia, he tested negative for that, but he did test positive for herpes. Several of the women said that R. Kelly knowingly gave them herpes by having sex with them. The testimony for the doctor was quite graphic. He talked about how R. Kelly would call him with lesions, first suggesting that, they'd happen because he wore leather pants without underwear. No, it's not what happened. It was actually him having a sexually transmitted disease. The doctor said, though, that R. Kelly never paid him, but he did fly the doctor and his wife all around the country to various concerts. What we are seeing in this trial, Brittany, is a lot more than what we saw in his first trial a number of years ago in Chicago. You actually have people, women, who are testifying against R. Kelly. This is not the only trial. It's what he faces cases in 2 other states, and so if a miracle happens and he gets off in this case, he still has to contend with the other cases. R. Kelly looks like the jig is up. 54 years old. He may be spending the rest of his life behind bars.
Yeah, Roland, I wish we as a society, specifically our community as well, to protect Black victims, protect Black women, and hold our sexual and domestic abusers accountable. This man should have already been behind bars. We knew R. Kelly was a predator decades ago when they were on the corner selling the tape where he peed on that young child. And we ignored it because he had some hit songs, and we love to blame the victim. We love to tell our young girls who are children that they're fast instead of holding these old behind predator men like R. Kelly accountable for trying to flirt, sexually abuse, groom, and rape these young kids. So I hope that this is a wake-up call to our society, because it shouldn't even have to have gone on this long for us to stop victim blaming, because that's why it has gone on for so long. Stop asking women, well, what did you drink and what did you have on, instead of asking, because the only thing that causes a rapist to rape is being a rapist. And stop having society ask the victim, well, why didn't you leave? Ask the abuser why they're hitting someone, and really do what's right by these victims, because it's absolutely ridiculous. And this man should have been behind bars, but I do think it's inevitable. He's going to end up where he deserves to be.
And again, and each day we're seeing quite graphic testimony in this trial, Kelly.
Yeah, just something that you said really quickly. He actually tested negative for herpes and tested positive for something else, but he was being treated for herpes, and the doctor concluded based off of his reaction to the treatment that he had herpes, but he did test negative for it. I just wanted to clarify that. It's still all disgusting, but I just wanted to clarify. Either way, like Brittany said, this man needs to be under a jail cell. We knew that he was a predator before the tape. We knew he was a predator when he married Aaliyah, a 15-year-old. We knew when when the album that he made with Aaliyah started off with "Age Ain't Nothing But a Number." His handle or nickname was literally the Pied Piper. And if you don't know what a Pied Piper is, it's a older man who plays like some type of flute or piper, and that music lures children to this predator. And he embraced that moniker. We've known for a very long time that R. Kelly is gross. We've known for a very long time that R. Kelly is a child abuser. But the fact that there are still supporters of R. Kelly right now supporting him through this trial is absolutely disgusting to me. And the only question I have for them are, like, how do you hate yourself this much? How dissociated are you from reality to enable a predator of this magnitude? Because the facts have been out there. He has admitted in several occasions, interviews and the like, that he has an affinity for children. He's a disgusting man. And for you in 2021 to still support him and go so far as to think that, the system is against him and people are racist and people are, it's gross to me. He needs to be under a jail cell. And yeah.
Let me say this here. First of all, the doctor had been treating R. Kelly since 1994. What he said is that he suspected he had genital herpes as early as 2000 because of the symptoms. The doctor testified there was a lab test that came back negative, but the doctor said the timing of the test is important, and the test itself can at times give false negative results. The doctor said, quote, "I did not conclude that he did not have herpes." McGrath testified in referring to his various medical records. He did say over a period of time that he was treated for herpes 5 times since 2000. That was what the doctor actually testified. Jason, when you look at this case, when you look at, again, the number of people testifying, what you did not have before, you had a lot of people who did not testify. In fact, in the previous case, the young girl that was seen in the video, first of all, people got to remember, R. Kelly was found not guilty because the jury could not ascertain the age of the girl in the video. But they forced a delay for so long. By the time that she actually testified, she was much older. And so therefore, they could not reconcile that. That's actually what happened in that particular case. This is different. You now actually have former employees testifying against him, women involved testifying against him. And so the prosecution has a lot more ammunition to target R. Kelly.
Yeah, I think that the prosecution is probably going to have a pretty rock solid case.
And they're going to have, now the documentaries have been made. I didn't watch the documentaries, but one of the things that I think we, kind of piggybacking off of what Brittany was saying in terms of this being a cultural moment for our people, is that we really need to address, sexual assault and predatory behavior, because it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but R. Kelly was a victim of sexual assault of his sister, if I'm not mistaken. And, I'm sure his sister was probably a victim of someone else. We've got to start to address these issues in our community to cut them off so that we don't have generations and generations of victims and people victimizing other people. R. Kelly is going to be where he deserves, I believe. And I was shocked that he got away with it in the 90s. And I was really shocked with some of the responses that would come on the radio when they would talk about it. People in our community, how they were blaming the victim. I think I read an interview with the victim where she blamed herself. I think that these are cultural, moments where we have to do some teaching and learn so that we don't actually keep this kind of thing going and looking the other way when it's happening. Because I knew people who said this was a well-known thing in Chicago, that R. Kelly would come by the high school, that they knew that he was, picking up girls at the high school when he was well over age. So this is something that we have to stop looking the other way. And hopefully this will be a teachable moment for the culture.
It was actually R. Kelly's brother who said that the two of them were molested by their older sister. R. Kelly also had said that he was molested by a man when he was around 10 years old. Bottom line is, with all of that, where you're seeing, again, prosecutors lay out a very, very lengthy list of evidence in this case. And so we're going to be covering this even further. Let's go back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Football bands and one of the best fan experiences in the country. The Cricket BX SWAC Challenge kickoff returns to Atlanta on August 28th, along with special guests, College Game Day. Then Alcorn State takes on North Carolina Central with conference bragging rights on the line. Center Park Stadium is the place to be on August 28th. Come tailgate all day before enjoying a primetime matchup on the gridiron. You don't want to miss this. Check out MEACSWACchallenge.com for more information.
Don't forget, folks, Roland Martin Unfiltered is going to be broadcasting live from Atlanta on Friday and Saturday. Friday will be at the Atlanta Braves Stadium, talking to the presidents of both universities, as well as officials with the SWAC and MEAC. Then on Saturday, we'll be at the Coca-Cola Fan Zone, broadcasting live from that particular afternoon. And then, of course, we'll be live streaming the halftime show and the concert taking place after the game. You can watch it at 7 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. And we appreciate it, in partnership with Coca-Cola, of making this happen. See you next week.